Now adjust the volume control so that the sound can be heard in all parts of the room.
This is the Protect Your Assets podcast.
You get the idea?
It's on the internet.
Make him the cutest that I've ever seen.
Go on.
Give him two lips like
It's like no cheese I've ever tasted.
and tell him that his love
Here's the Sandman.
over Sandman.
Are you planning on collecting Social Security?
Nobody to call.
Will it be there to pay you the benefits when you want to turn it on? Or if you're collecting it now, will it change? I know, I got your attention, didn't I? Well, good. You're in luck today because we're going to talk about what's going on with Social Security right now in light of Doge and what Social Security ideas you might want to think about if you're contemplating Social Security. Does that sound good? Well, if it does, then stick around because we'll be talking about that today. Good morning. I am David Hollander, your host, and this is Protect Your Assets Radio. People call me the Sandman because I help you protect what's yours. That's why today we're talking about Social Security, because that is a very important part of your retirement income. After all, you paid into it all those years. Each check. My daughter always asks me, what's that SDI stuff? Why do they take so much money out? I say, well, honey, that's your share into the system. And Elon Musk recently called it a Ponzi scheme. I'm sure you heard about that. But in any event, we're going to get down to it today. So if you have a question, I've been doing this for over 30 years. I'm a lawyer, financial advisor, and we do taxes here. We do it all. You can always ask me a question, too, by sending me an email. And that goes to questions@pyaradio.com. questions@pyaradio.com. Now, I was just talking about Social Security because just the other day, a client of mine, his name is Mark, he asked me a great question. He said, with everything going on right now with Doge and Social Security, I want to know what's going to happen to my Social Security and how should I take it? Because he's thinking about it right now for he and his wife. And it was a good question because as we started to scratch the surface, we started to hear about all the people that are collecting Social Security right now who maybe shouldn't be. That's very controversial. Then you've got these 10 members of Doge that were just stuck in there, 7 of which have access to a master file database called Numident. Look it up, Numident. Look what that information has about you. And there's 7 people out there apparently who have access to all that. What are they doing with that? You may wonder. But look at their backgrounds. Got me wondering a lot. Currently, it's only read-only access. Like that makes me feel any better. As they try to connect the dots between Social Security numbers and possible fraud payments. At least that's the story. But will this be the start of something else? Like what, you might ask? That's the question Mark asked. Privatization. Remember that whole thing? Well, it's back. They're talking about it. So if you think about this question, it's a big one because every time you got a paycheck, or if you're still collecting your paychecks because you're working, look at that paycheck stub and see what you're paying into. You're paying into a system. What do you really know about it? Have you thought about it? Have you thought about how you're going to turn it on or when you might turn it on? Because if you're like Mark, then today I'm going to ask you to get your statement from the government so we can cover it. So we're going to go to break here soon. If you want to pull it up, and we'll be talking about it today, go to ssi.gov. You have enough time to go pull your statement, your new 25 statement, ssi.gov, and get your statement because today we're going to talk about it. What are your options? If you're a 65-year-old married couple or more, did you know that you have 1,379 different ways currently, that may change, to collect your benefits? Think about that. How would you figure that out? 1,379. So here's the bottom line. If you'll give me 45 minutes this morning, you can develop a strategy, or at least some things to think about, as to how and when you're going to take your Social Security benefits. Stick around for the entire show as we're going to walk through Social Security right now and what do you need to be thinking about. It's all coming up next. Now, let's get started. Well, the chaos spewing from Washington this past week certainly got things going. The S&P 500 hit correction territory this past week for the first time in a while. The Dow settled in down 3.1%. S&P finished down 2.3%. NASDAQ off 2.4%. Year-to-date, it's down over 8%. And the MSCI International Index was off 2.1%, but year-to-date is still up 8.1%. 10-year Treasury was flat this week, still at 4.32%. Oil, $67.14 a barrel, up slightly, about a penny. And bonds still looking decent for the week, off 0.1%. Year-to-date up 2.3%. So the question continues, what's going on with this market and how much longer will it go on? And is it the end? I always hear that question. Is this it? I had someone this week sell everything. Not with me, but just heard it. We talk to a lot of people every week. So I heard about one person this week who just sold it all. Wow. So with this chaos, if you want to call it, the market is dimming slightly. And it's safe to say until markets can understand what the ultimate goal of the tariff trade strategy is, then any short-term rally is likely to be temporary. So the main issue right now is that, and until it goes away, the best we can hope for is this market to remain in the hang-on level, which I'll call, this is on the S&P, by the way, 5,600 to 5,900. We closed Friday at 5,639, just for your information. I'd be hesitant to extrapolate that out into a larger long-term view that I'm bearish. And here's why. Write these down because you're asking each week. I know, because all of my people here say, please talk about this. So first, there are policy positives, believe it or not, looming in the future. What? Like what? Tax cuts. Tax cuts are likely to be extended and potentially putting a tailwind on stocks. Okay? Second, deregulation is ongoing. And as a strategist this past week said, deregulation is, quote, one of the most powerful pro-business moves an administration can make, period. This is not policy, this is fact. Third, we'll call it the Fed put. Well, what is that? It's alive and well, and why we might not see it right now while tariffs are working their way out, it's positive that the Fed may lower rates this year. That's a positive for stocks and risk assets in general. And fourth, senior levels of the Trump administration are staffed with, I hate to say it, but there's some successful people who have spent their lives in the economy and markets. Check it out. It's likely they decided to go on a kamikaze. It's unlikely that they're going to go on a kamikaze mission to wreck the U.S. economy. So my point is, we may not be at a level that triggers the Trump put yet, like last time. Remember where he capitulated and just said, okay, tariffs are off. But we don't have a bunch of know-nothings who are making some of these economic decisions. Again, this is just from a market standpoint. And you could talk about Howard Lutnick and Scott Bessent, but check out their backgrounds, right? These people at least have some understanding. So bottom line, in the near term, this market, it's going to bounce around. And until investors believe they understand the point of the tariffs, then any rally, I think, would be temporary. Now, what do we do with our Social Security? Well, if you saw the recent update from Doge, and all the layoffs that are happening, and the office is closing, and what you need to figure out for yourself. I'm talking about Social Security right now. If that's important to you, well, when we come back, you want to find out what could be coming and what you should do about it right now. You're listening to Protect Your Assets with me, David Hollander. I will be right back.
Take the first step toward reaching your financial goals and get the information that can help you live a confident retirement. That first step is going to PYAEvents.com and signing up for our next free event. That's PYAEvents.com. Now, back to Protect Your Assets with David Hollander, the Sandman.
Welcome back. I'm David Hollander, also known as the Sandman, and you are listening to Protect Your Assets this morning. People around here, they call me the Sandman because I help my listeners sleep well at night by thinking about these big questions. And you talk about battle lines and all that. It's happening right now. And we couldn't be more controversial about a subject like Social Security. But if you've been following what's going on like Mark has, Mark called me this past week and said, what should we do about Social Security? And the more I started digging into it, the more I said, these are things to think about. After all, Elon Musk and Doge have moved in. They've got 7 Doge staffers, apparently, that have been given access to a database known as Numident. This has all kinds of information that you probably want to know about. Numident. And apparently, it's only read-only access, whatever that means. But you may be wondering what's going on. What are they doing with all that information? And then you start reading other articles out there about privatization of Social Security and where this is going and what's happening. And you start thinking about it. Is this something that I should look at right now? Or should I just ignore it and just keep going like I've been doing if you're still working? So we spend a lot of our time working with our clients on planning, specifically when it comes to retirement. We use a very robust tool called eMoney. And if you look out there, you'll see there's 2 very complex retirement planning tools. One's called eMoney, the other one's called Money Guide Pro. And we have a team of people. It's literally a team here in our Oakland office that works on planning. That's all they do. And they work with our clients on building out retirement plans. And part of that is Social Security. And we consider the tax implications of that because we do taxes here. We have tax people on staff. We have lawyers on staff who look at estate planning and taxation of that. And then, of course, we do finance here when it comes to managing your money and living off of your income for the rest of your life. That's the way we do it. We believe in the trifecta. So if you're approaching retirement right now, or maybe you're there, think about this. You worked 90,000 hours. 90,000 hours during your life doing what you did. And the worst thing that you can do is make a mistake or get advice from somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about or doesn't have the tools or the team necessary to help you. So why is Social Security important? According to AARP, this survey just came out last year. If you're 50 or older, then 90% of you think Social Security is important. Okay? So putting that aside, it's important. While it's intended to remember, Social Security was never intended to replace all of your income. It was just meant to be a supplement. And according to this article, about half of all persons over 62 will get at least 50% of their retirement income from Social Security. This came from the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. But many of our clients, we find they use it as part of what we'll call a 3-legged stool. Not quite 50%, but it's a percentage overall of their strategy, particularly if you maximize it. And that's what we're going to talk about today, particularly with what's coming. Because if there's changes coming to making you wait longer to collect it, which could happen. They did it before. They could do it again. then you might want to think about taking it sooner than later. Maybe one benefit that Social Security recipients receive is the potential for COLAs, cost of living adjustments. The Social Security Fund must account for the annual cost of living adjustment. What does that mean? Well, to help people maintain their purchasing power, the Social Security Administration, which, by the way, has been cut quite a bit. Go look at how many people were recently laid off and how many offices were closed. According again to their website, they are supposed to maintain that Social Security based on a yearly adjustment from the Labor Department's Consumer Price Index, CPI. And they usually look at the third quarter of the prior year to the third quarter of the current year to figure this out. For 2025, you should have received a COLA of 2.5%. And that benefit, if you're collecting it right now, so for those of you who are collecting it today, that was paid in January when you received your check. So that's how that works. Now, if you don't look at this annually, then I would suggest today you do it. Today's show is going to be a few lessons for you. One of the most important ones you need to do right now, whether you're collecting it or not, is get your statement. So go to ssa.gov and pull down your Social Security statement and look at it. We're going to talk about it today. I'm going to show you what to look at there and make sure it's right, because it's up to you, especially now with them cutting the force they just cut and closing the offices they just cut. You have to get smarter than ever right now because you're on your own in a lot of ways. This is complex. I know it. You can't go it alone. So here's what I'm going to do this morning. I wrote a book. It's called Protect Your Assets, because that's what we do here. We talk about things just like this. And if you want to get a copy of my book, Chapter 6, only, by the way, if you want the whole book, go buy it on Amazon. But if you want Chapter 6 this morning, where I get into Social Security and some of the things I'm talking about today and much more, I will give it to you free in a PDF. But you have to call me right now. Call this number. Call 866-PROTECT. I've got Dylan. I got Phil up there ready to talk to you. They're just sitting here. Call them. 866-776-8328. Tell them you heard this. You want Chapter 6 to help get Social Security in order. 866-PROTECT. Coming up next, we're going to keep getting into the Social Security question even more. This is our popular They Say segment coming up, where they say Social Security could run out. You're going to want to hear about this one. You're listening to Protect Your Assets. We'll be right back.
Take the first step toward reaching your financial goals and get the information that can help you live a confident retirement. That first step is going to PYAEvents.com and signing up for our next free event. That's PYAEvents.com. Now back to Protect Your Assets with David Hollander, the Sandman.
Welcome back. I'm David Hollander, also known as the Sandman. And this is Protect Your Assets because, after all, I know you're excited. I know things are going on, but you just have to relax because we can figure this out together. After all, that's what we do here, is we help you make better decisions by using some very sophisticated tools. It really is that simple. It's not easy. We put a lot behind it, a lot of hours, a lot of brain power, but the results, well, let's just say I'm pretty satisfied. Overall, I would recommend that if you're concerned about Social Security, maybe you heard about DOGE and the 7 staffers that have been appointed and given access to a database known as the Master File of Social Security Number Holders and all the SSN applications. If you're concerned about that, if you're concerned about Social Security, then you've been asking questions like Mark did this past week. Thank you, Mark. And these are good questions because now is the time to be thinking about this, particularly if you're, according to ARP, one of the 90% who think Social Security is pretty important as part of your retirement. It is. And how it's taxed and when you take it is a complex decision. Because if you're a 65-year-old couple or older, you have 1,379 different ways to take it. And when you add on top of that your income from your 401ks and other assets when you start collecting RMDs, then you're talking about when is the best time to do it and how do we get the most out of it. And if they privatize it, what does that mean? So let's start with some basics here. Get your statement, ssa.gov, to pull down your personal statement. Go to page 1. Now, we saw this past week. I've never seen this before. And Mark asked this. Mark, his birthday is later this year. He's going to turn 69. Right now, his statement on page 1 says, currently at 68 years old and 6 months, he could collect $4,363 a month if he were to start it, basically now. It then says if he waits till his birthday at the end of this year when he's 69, it's the same amount, $4,363. Same numbers. And if you read the statement on the first page, you'll see it says for each month you wait, you should get more. Well, that doesn't make sense, does it? The statement says the same thing. And we still have time to go. Huh? So if you're concerned about a change happening this year, and this might be the time you're going to take it anyways, right around now or at age 70, should you take it now? That's the question. Because what if they change it? What if they privatize it? We can talk about that. And that's an act of Congress, not just Doge doing it. But, okay. But if they do change it as part of maybe the tax bill that's going to come at some point, we all know that. There's going to be a lot of trading going on because you're going to need some Dems on the other side voting for it in the Senate, which is unlikely, but you never know. So what if that happened? Maybe you take the benefit now because it makes sense. Again, we can plan and figure that out, but you need to sit down and get through that. So we can do that. In this Mark's case, if he waits till 70, which would be a year from the end of this year, he'll collect about $500 more a month by waiting. $4,864 a month, according to the statement. Now, Mark's spouse works as well, and she's got a nice benefit. So how do you split that one up? How do you figure which way you go? Well, in this case, maybe we divide or split the baby, right? Because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. And if it doesn't really make that big of a difference in their retirement and their taxes and their income overall, and like the statement says, right now it's about the same as waiting, maybe it makes sense to start it now and then wait on hers and see what happens. Because if hers ends up being higher than his when she is 70 and he were to die first, she keeps her higher benefit. Remember, she's going to lose his benefit regardless. And so if they wait to take the bigger one because nothing really changes in terms of folks at a certain period of time, again, we don't really know a lot of what's coming, but we do know that. Typically when things are grandfathered, they stay the way they are, and then going forward is when the change occurs. So if you activate, perhaps you stay under the old system. Perhaps. Again, just theorizing. But wouldn't it be nice to model that? And we can do that. We can use our software to model future potential unknowns to make better decisions. Does that make sense? That's what we do. Now, the other thing I want you to do is take a look at page 2. This is important. You must do this for yourself. Look at page 2 and you'll see each and every year that you worked. Mark worked all the way back to 1966. Congratulations. And you'll see each and every year that you worked and how much you were taxed, your earnings were taxed for Social Security and for Medicare. And you'll see each and every year. And you may want to look at that because you need to be making a certain amount to collect your credits. And the only one who's going to verify that is you. And now's the time to do that if you haven't turned it on yet. So take a look at that. Next question, because it's our They Say segment. Let's go.
Who are they? What do they know that I don't? And what are they saying this week? Here's David Hollander, the Sandman's answer.
All I know is that I don't know.
All right, so here's one they say. They say that Social Security won't be there when you decide to draw down on it because this past week Elon Musk said it was a Ponzi scheme. He's going to privatize it. Not quite, but anyway, he did say the Ponzi part. Could have changed forever. Is this true? Well, again, look at some facts that are out there right now. The trustees, this is the trustee report. This is what Congress looks at. They released, the last report was May 6th of last year. It'll come out again this year, and of course, I'm going to be reading it, and you should too. But according to the report that's published and out there right now, the trust fund reserves will run out in 2035. So does this mean that Social Security will stop at that point in time? Well, according to the trustees, about 83% of Social Security's full benefits will continue after 35. 83%. That should prevent a shortfall, but if it does, Congress can act. And like I said, Congress may act now. I certainly don't think they're not going to talk about it. So if you think they're going to just ignore it, I think you're short-sighted. I think there's coming. There's things that will be talked about and negotiated, and we'll see what happens. How is Social Security actually financed currently? Social Security is funded through a payroll tax deduction. Look at your pay stub. And that's paid for by you and your employer. Did you know that? So in Mark's case, he paid $175,000 into the Social Security system, but his employer paid $197,000. That's right. So there's money in there that's being paid from all the people that are currently working. And in the tax year 2025, payroll taxes are applied to the first $176,100 that you make of income goes to the fund currently here in 25. The Social Security tax applied to employees and employers is 6.2% of your paycheck or 12.4% total when you look at who's paying it. And that's where I got those numbers over time from Mark's statement. When you contribute to, by the way, that's at the bottom of page 2 if you want to look at your own. When you contribute to Social Security, the money doesn't go to a specific fund allocated to you. Workers are paying into a system that pays for current retirees' benefits, and for every dollar you pay in, this is important, 85 cents of that dollar goes towards Social Security Trust Fund. And that's the one that they're saying is going to run out. The other 15 cents, well, where does that go? Well, that goes to a separate fund that pays benefits to people on disabilities and their families who are collecting that. And again, according to this report, the Social Security Administration will run out of the reserves in 2035. And if Congress doesn't act, the fund will only be able to pay for, according to this report, again, 83% of retirees' full benefits. Now, I'm really looking forward to the report that's going to come out this year. I don't expect much to change between now and then in terms of the fund they're going to look at. But what about a year from now? Right? That could be an interesting read. I would encourage you to go take a look at YouTube. There's a 60 Minutes out there which talks about people collecting Social Security that didn't necessarily deserve it or got more than they needed. And it talks about what they had to do to unwind all that. So get educated about that because you want to make the right decision. So by getting your statement, by looking at it, maybe you can work it out so you won't be taxed as much. You heard me. You're going to get taxed right now on your Social Security. Now, I know at the address, President Trump said that for some people, he was going to try and not tax Social Security. Again, this is a talking point. Will that happen? Probably not for those who have 401ks and other assets and are going to be living in the Bay Area and paying the cost of living around here. I kind of doubt it. You're probably going to be taxed. And so if you make more than $34,000 combined gross income as a single filer, then currently 85% of that Social Security benefit is part of your AGI, adjusted gross income. If you're a married couple and you make more than $44,000 a year of other stuff, then same thing, 85% of that may be taxed. How do you get around that, or how do you reduce that? You need to figure that out with a tax person. We do that. That's the kind of stuff that we do. And if you want to figure out how to do that, because you've never had this conversation or never looked at it that way specifically, then we can help you with that. But you have to pick up the phone right now and call this number, 866-PROTECT, and find out more. Find out how to get more of what is legally yours right now. Use the rules to help you, not hurt you. 866-776-8328. Get proactive on this right now. What are you doing? 866-PROTECT. We're live in the studio right now. We want to talk to you. You won't be on the air unless you ask for it, but we can help you. 866-PROTECT. Coming up next, what are some other things you can do right now to get more from Social Security? That's a really good question, Mark. Find out when I come back. You're listening to Protect Your Assets with David Hollander. We'll be right back.
If you missed any of Protect Your Assets with David Hollander, all you have to do is go to PYARadio.com, where you can download or listen to our latest shows for free. Just go to PYARadio.com on your computer or mobile device when it's most convenient for you. That's PYARadio.com. Now, back to Protect Your Assets with David Hollander, the Sandman.
Welcome back. I'm David Hollander, also known as the Sandman. And you're listening to Protect Your Assets this morning. And people call me the Sandman because I help my listeners sleep better by hitting those topics straight on that are keeping you up at night, like Social Security. This morning we've been talking about what's going on over there. What should you be concerned about? And what do you need to do right now to make sure you get ahead of what's coming potentially? That reminds me, if you missed any of the show this morning, particularly the market segment, I know markets have been volatile lately. You need to get a copy of our podcast and the market segment in particular, which will be posted Monday. Just go wherever you get your favorite podcast, type in Protect Your Assets, market segment, and you should find it right there. You'll know it because it has a profile of me on it as opposed to the little Sandman character. Okay, that's the difference. If you're just joining us now and you're thinking about Social Security because it's been in the news lately, then get ready because here we go. One of the first steps in approaching a Social Security strategy involves determining something known as your full retirement age, your FRA. This represents the age at which you can receive your, quote, primary insurance amount. That's important, as opposed to when you're eligible just to get it. And this is based on your date of birth. So it's unique to you. For example, if you were born in 1938, your FRA is 65 years and 2 months. But if you were born in 1960 or later like me, then your FRA is 67. The reason the FRA is important is because if you claim Social Security before your FRA, then you're just going to get less. And if you can wait past the FRA, then you're going to receive an 8% increase for every year you wait past your FRA. Let's say you were born in 1950 and have an FRA of 66 years. You're single and your FRA Social Security benefit is $2,000 a month. Now, I'm going to leave COLAs out of this conversation for a minute. If you choose to begin receiving your Social Security at your full retirement age and you made it to age 70, at age 70, you would have received $96,000. But if you had started taking it earlier at the age of 64, then you'd receive $124,776. And if you started at age 62, that number would be $144,000 of total Social Security benefits. Now, using this example, it might appear that it's better to start early. And I get questions about this every week, and that's not necessarily the truth. Why? Well, in the example, if that person's longevity was only to age 70, then delaying Social Security until FRA would have been less desirable than total income, obviously. Well, what do you mean by that? Well, you could have got a diagnosis. You could have been hurt in an accident or killed, right? These things happen. But what if you lived until 80 or 90? By the way, if you're a married couple, 65 or older, you have a 50% chance or greater that's going to happen to one of you. So it's very likely. In that situation, the difference would be reversed. It'd be the other way around, meaning you wait longer. for everybody. There's a break-even point that exists among this type of a strategy. And of course, if you knew when you were going to pass away, then that decision would be much easier. So we use tools to help you look at your options and consider on average what could be your break-even and what might make sense from a tax perspective. In addition, don't forget the spousal survival benefit. That could be delayed and give you more if something were to happen out of the ordinary. So, due to the number of variables that are involved in making these strategic decisions and how complicated Social Security is right now, and going to get even more so, it seems like, then you definitely should get information and planning from, I'll call them knowledgeable professionals like us. Why? Well, you can formulate a better approach to Social Security. You develop a plan that might show some things that you didn't know, like what's the tax exposure? Weigh the pros and cons of making an earlier distribution versus later. Make sure you understand what's going on here and all the nuances and the regulations that are out there. Because Social Security affects your Medicare. It affects the taxes you pay on all of your other income sources. So you need to look at this. You need to get in front of it now before things change. How do you do that? I have a personalized Social Security report that we will do for you now because you're listening. How do you get this? Pick up the phone and dial this number, 866-PROTECT, 866-776-8328, and ask them to help you get your Social Security report. I'd like to give a big thanks this morning to the Protect Your Assets team for a great show. This includes Mark, too. Mark, thanks for asking the question. My executive producer, network manager, Kevin Renfer. And, of course, all my fabulous producers back there answering the phone and doing all the work that you don't see. Phil, Lucas, Zach, and Raph. Because without my team, I'm just another pretty voice on the radio. You've been listening to the Protect Your Assets show. I am David Hollander, the Sandman. Go out and make the rest of your life the best of your life.
Investment advisory services are offered through Liberty Wealth Management, a registered investment advisor. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. The strategies mentioned are not suitable for everyone. The information expressed does not consider your specific situation or objectives and may not be appropriate for all investors. Past performance is not indicative of future results. To better understand the risk associated with investing and how it reacts to different market conditions, listeners should always consult with their qualified investment professionals, financial advisors, legal or tax specialists, and conduct their due diligence before making any financial decisions or taking any action. The legal information provided on the air is not intended to substitute for callers hiring their lawyers to advise them about personal legal matters. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Liberty Group LLC paid for the following program, and the host's views and opinions do not represent those of the station or its ownership. California Life Agent number 048569. Persons engaging the services of one affiliate of Liberty Group LLC companies should be aware that each company is operated separately. You're listening to the Protect Your Assets Radio Network.